Whispers in the walls. I never thought I'd be the one putting this down on paper, not like this anyway. Not in the dead of night with a stub of candle guttering low and the wind clawing at the shutters like it. S got something personal against our little corner of the world. It's October 1987 now, or close enough. The leaves have turned that bruised shade of red that always makes the cemetery look like it's bleeding, and the air carries that bite, the kind that sinks into your bones and whispers about winters past. My name's Eliyahu, Ben Davidel, to my sister, though she has uncalled me that in weeks without a hitch in her voice. And if you're rereading this, well, maybe it's because I slipped it into the lining of that old coat Rabbi Weiss left behind. Or perhaps you've found it among the yellowed pages of the Zohar he pressed into my hands like a last will and testament. I don't know. What I do know is that the words have been piling up in my head like snow against the door, and if I don't let them out, they'll bury me alive. So here it is, the whole rotten thing, from the first ordinary crack to whatever this is now. Don't say I didn't warn you, and if you hear tapping after, for God's sake, don't answer. Our village it's called. No Itag in the maps, but we just call it the shtetl, like it is the only one left in Poland after the war. Chewed up the rest and spat out ghosts. It's hunkered in the shadow of the Tatra Mountains, a huddle of timber houses and crooked lanes where the black forest presses in like an uninvited guest. Time moves slow here, deliberate, the way it does when the nearest train station is a day's walk through mud that sticks to your boots like regret. We're what's left of the old Jews, the ones who kept the Kabbalah fires burning when the rest of the world decided electric lights were holier than candle wax. Synagogues with walls scarred from Cossack blades, mikvehs fed by springs that taste of iron and memory, and rituals that make the air hum with words no outsider would believe. Me, I'm 23, the last of the Ben Davids in a line that traces back to some rabbi who supposedly chatted with Elijah over brandy, apprenticed to Rabbi Shlomo Weiss, the village's walking archive of the forbidden, and bent like a question mark, with a beard gone silver and eyes that could pin you like a moth to corkboard. His arms are a map of old battles, scars twisting like Hebrew letters from rituals he only half explains, encounters with the Sitra Akra Eliyahu. The other side doesn't forgive sloppiness. Life was a quiet rhythm back then, the kind you don't notice until it's gone. Mornings started with the rooster's insolent crow, pulling me from a cot in the loft where the rafters dripped condensation like slow tears. I'd stumble down the ladder to the kitchen, where Hannah, my sister, and built like the willows by the stream, sturdy and uncomplaining, would already be coaxing fire from the stove. She had that way about her, curls escaping her kerchief like secrets, hands dusted with flour from the eternal kneading of dough. Breakfast was black bread and weak tea, shared over talk of nothing. The market prices for wool down again, or how the rabbi's latest lecture on the Sephirot had my head spinning like a dreidel. You're too deep in those books, little brother, she'd tease, ruffling my hair till I swatted her away. One day you'll forget how to milk the goat. I'd laugh, because what else? Our parents were long gone father to the consumption in 78, mother chasing him a month later, her cough echoing his like a dirge. Just us two in that house, a sagging beast of oak and pine clinging to the hillside like it was afraid to slide into the valley below. The house itself was older than sin, pieced together in the 1700s, from timbers that still smelled of the forests where golems were whispered to roam. It squatted right against the cemetery fence, close enough that on windy nights you could hear the branches scrape the rottian, like fingernails on a coffin lid. Walls wept moisture in black streaks, floorboards warped and sighing underfoot, and the air hung heavy with the ghosts of beeswax and mildew. Every room was a reliquary. The parlor shelf bowed under Torah scrolls furled tight as secrets, their velvet covers frayed from fingers that traced them through programs and partitions. Candle stubs littered the sills, half-melted sentinels from hurried prayers, and in the corners, shadows pooled like spilled ink, stubborn even to the oil lamp's flicker. Up in the attic, under rafters thick with cobwebs, were the boxes, those damned little wine crate things, no bigger than a child's hope chest. Lids nailed shut with iron spikes and sealed in crimson wax, stamped with the inverted seal of Solomon. Dybbuk boxes, grandfather called them in his fading Yiddish, his voice cracking like dry leaves. Traps for the wicked dead boob, souls too greedy for Gehenna, too sly for the grave. We'd nod and change the subject, because in the shtetl, some doors you don't knock on, not unless the wind starts whispering your name. That first week in October, it was ordinary as porridge. I detrudged to the synagogue after dawn, prayers a squat stone thing with a minion that smelled of pipe tobacco and unwashed wool where Rabbi Weiss waited in his study, a cave of stacked grimoires and flickering lamps that cast his scars in We'd dissect the Zohar line by line, him droning on about the tree of life's branches, while I scribbled notes, my quill scratching like a guilty conscience. The Kliphoth lurk in the shadows, Eliyahu, he'd say, tapping a gnarled finger on the page. Husks of broken vessels, hungry for the light they shattered. Curiosity is there, hook reel it in, or they'll gut you. I'd nod, half listening, my mind wandering to Hannah's stew simmering back home, or the way the forest light slanted gold through the pines. Afternoons were chores, splitting wood till my palms blistered, or helping her in the garden where root vegetables clung to the soil like they knew winter was coming. Evenings we'd light the Shabbat candles early, sometimes just the two of us, her voice soft on the blessings, while the flames danced reflections in her eyes, warm brown like polished chestnuts full of that quiet faith that made the house feel less like a tomb. The crack came subtle, the way frost creeps into a pane you don't see it till the whole thing shatters. Hannah started with the headaches, sharp ones that pinched behind her eyes like God's own tweezers. The damp again, she'd mutter, pressing a rag wrung from well water to her temple while stirring the pot. I'd brew her chamomile from the dried bundles hanging in the pantry, tease her about turning into an old bub before 30. Maybe it's the ghosts complaining about your cooking, I'd say, and she'd swat me with a wooden spoon, her laugh bubbling up light and real. But that Tuesday, as the sun hung low and sullen, painting the cemetery in bruised purples, I heard it while reading in the parlor, the Mishnah open on my lap, quill idle, and then, tap, soft, deliberate, from the wall behind the hearth, tap tap, pause, tap tap tap, like a child signaling through a shared partition, or Morse from the other side. I cocked my head, the room's hush amplifying the tick of the clock, the distant low of the cow in the barn, and now this, rhythmic, insistent, syncing with the pulse in my throat. I set the book down, crossed to the wall, pressed my ear to the cold plaster. The tapping sharpened, evolving not random, but patterned, like knuckles rapping a code, and beneath it, a hum, faint as breath on glass, shaping into sibilants. Not words, not yet, but suggestions. She, she, haha, like a lullaby sung backward. Hannah. I called up the stairs, voice thinner than the smoke from the stove. Her footsteps creaked overhead, then paused. What is it, Eli? Supper's almost ready. No mention of the sound. I climbed anyway, the treads groaning in sympathy, and found her in her room folding linens, the air thick with lavender from the sachet she'd sewn. The tapping stopped the instant my boot hit the top step. You hear that? From the wall. She turned, brow furrowed, her reflection in the vanity catching the dying light eyes. Normal, tired but kind. Hear what? The eaves rattling. It's the wind, always is this time of year. I lingered, scanning the corners where shadows clung stubborn, but nothing. Too many of the rabbi's tales, she said, pressing a folded sheet into my arms. Goofy boy, sleep was a thief that night. I bolted awake around 2, the room pitch except for the sliver of moon through the frost-rimed window. Tap dash tap tap tap, louder now. From my side of the wall, vibrating through the lath like a heartbeat too close. I fumbled for the tinderbox, struck flint till sparks bloomed into flame and padded to the shared wall. The sound persisted, mocking, and then the hum returned clearer, curling into fragments. E-Lee, ya, double quotes, my name, drawn out like smoke from a hookah, laced with something amused, ancient. I banged my fist against the plaster hard, 3 times and it ceased, leaving a silence that rang. Downstairs, I lit every lamp, recited the Shema twice over, the words tumbling hasty. Shema, Yisrael, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad. But dawn found me hollow-eyed, chalking it up to the house's old bones, settling, or the cider from market day soured in my gut. By Thursday, Hannah's headaches had teeth. She'd take to her bed after noon, skin clammy as the fog that rolled off the Donajek River, murmuring about dreams with the dead knocked polite at her window. They're just lonely out there, she'd say when I brought tea, nodding toward the panes where the cemetery's stones loomed like crooked teeth. I'd scoff gently, superstitions for the Goyim, but unease rooted deep, twisting when she'd laugh, the sound catching odd, like a record skipping. That evening, as sleet needled the roof, the tapping migrated. Not walls now, but the floorboards under my chair in the kitchen, tapped up from below, as if something in the cellar stirred. I investigated with a lantern, descending the latter into air thick as grave dirt, shelves of jars glinting milky in the light. The Dybbuk boxes were there, in their shadowed alcove. 7 of them were darkened to near black clasps, rusted but intact. Wax seals cracked at the edges from damp. One, the smallest, sat askew, as if nudged. I righted it, heart thudding, and froze at the sire. Puff of air from the seam, carrying scorched cloth, and something sweeter, like overripe fruit. No sound, but as I backed away, the lantern flame dipped, shadows leaping like startled cats. Friday brought Rabbi Weiss to the door, his knock thunderous as judgment. I'd gone to him that morning, spilling the tale in his study while he puffed his pipe, smoke wreathing his scars like veils. Tapping murmurs. Her pallor, I finished, voice frayed. He set the pipe down, deliberate eyes narrowing to slits. The house of Ben David, always a threshold, the cemetery's breath on your neck, the boxes your grandfather's folly. He rose, joints popping like gunfire in the quiet, and fetched a pouch from his desk. Coarse salt, grey as storm clouds. Circle her bed tonight, recite the bedtime Shema with intent, not rote, and bring me a lock of her hair, wrapped thrice in linen. Signs may cling. Signs. The words slithered, evoking the Zohar's warnings of clipped husks that mimicked the holy, feeding on doubt. I nodded, pocketing the salt, and trudged home through lanes slick with fallen leaves, past the bakery where old Mendel hawked rye loaves still warm, his Yiddish thick with Carpathian lilt. The village hummed low, women in shawls bartering onions, men with peos debating Talmud under the linden tree, children chasing hoops that echoed like tiny bells, but under it, the old pulse. Kabbalah circles in moonlit clearings, exorcisms whispered to keep the Shadim at bay. That night, the salt circle went down, grudging grains, hissing on the floorboards like quenched embers, enclosing Hannah's four-poster in a brittle halo. She watched from the quilts, eyes shadowed, protesting faint. Eli, this is for children and fools. I'm just Ilthaflux, maybe. But her fingers plucked at the blanket, betraying, and when I kissed her forehead, cool clammy she gripped my wrist, nails biting. Promise you'll stay close. The Shema came halting, my voice echoing off the beams, the words a flimsy net against the dark. I left her brush on the rabbi's stoop at false dawn, the village asleep under mist that clung like a shroud, and buried myself in studies to forget the way the salt had seemed to steam when I poured it. The changes in Hannah crept like ivy. By Sunday, her laughter fractured starting light, then veering sharp, ending in a cough that rattled like dice in a cup. She'd stare from windows for hours, unblinking, as if the headstones held court with her. They have stories, Eli, she'd murmur, tracing frost patterns on the glass. Unfinished ones. Meals sat cold. She'd pick at crusts, fingers trembling just enough to spill crumbs like omens. One dusk, as lamps kindled against the early dark, I found her in the hall mirror. That warped antique with its silver backing flaked like scabs. She stood transfixed. Kerchief, loose, nightgown pale as bone, lips parted in a half-smile that didn't fit. Hon, my voice scraped. She didn't turn, but in the glass, her reflection shifted eyes, flickering from brown to bottomless black, whites veined red like marble cracked by heat. A blink, and normalcy snapped back, but the air thickened, charged as before thunder. She whirled then, confusion clouding her face. Eli, I zoned out. The light plays tricks, but as she moved, her sleeve rode up, revealing her forearm, welts, raised and angry, spelling Hebrew in angular script Aliflam, hey, twisted into ALH, a profane echo of God's name, pulsing with her breath. No blood, no itch just there, like branded from within. We bound it with cloth, her whispering, what is this? And me lying, allergy to the wool, nothing more, but sleep was fractured. The tapping resumed at midnight. From ceiling now, tap tap, tap devolving into Monslow, guttural like wind through a throat. Monday, we sought the rabbi. The path wound fog-choked, boots sucking mud, the air ripe with pine rot and distant bells. His cottage door creaked open to incense haze, shelves groaning under tomes bound in hides that whispered provenance. He took her arm, unrolling the cloth with hands steady as a surgeon's, and his breath hitched. Dybbuk, he confirmed, tracing the letters air close. An old fiend, see the inversion. Sigil of the Klippoth's Greed Branch Asmodeus's litter, soul hoarders from the ghetto days. His voice dropped confessional. This one's Abram the moneylender. Eliyahu died in 41, pockets sewn shut with his victim's gold, cursing the angel of death. Jumped hosts thrice before your grandfather boxed him. The house, ... it's a beacon. Those seals weaken with time, and your curiosity. He fixed me, piercing. You brushed one, didn't you? In the cellar, guilt burned. I'd admitted the shift, the sigh. He nodded grim, fetching vials myrrh oil, raven's feather for ashing prayers. Chant the Anabekoch daily, circle expanded. I'll come for the full rite. We left with amulets, silver discs etched with the 42-letter name, hung on leather thongs. Hannah clutched hers, pale but resolute. We'll beat this, Rebbe. He smiled thin. Faith is the hammer, child. Doubt, the crack. Vigil became my shadow. I'd perch by her bed till eyes burned. Psalms rolling from numb lips. The salt replenished at dawn. The tapping morphed. Scratches now, nails on wood from the headboard, sinking her sleep. Whispers joined sibilant through cracks. Ha-NNR ... sweet ... vessel ... double quotes her name first, then mine. Laced amusement. I'd jolt, find her lips moving silent, mimicking. One pre-dawn post-thrash where guttural laughs bubbled from her chest. I raided the cellar again, lantern high. The boxes loomed accusatory. The small one gaped a hairline, draft sighing gold scent like minted sign. From within, chuckle, wet and phlegmy, drowning man glee. I resealed hasty with wax from a stump, fleeing as moans chased up the stairs. Rabbi's visits stacked like storm clouds. Daily now, his face etching deeper furrows, bringing relics, realtorial spools from pre-war vaults, capturing exorcisms gone sour. Listen, he'd urge in the parlor, machine worry amid chalked circles and incense coils. Static crackled, then a voice not Hannah's kin, but echo, woman's plea in Aramaic, overlaid man's snarl. The ledgers ... my due. Souls for shekels ... double quotes, ending in snap scream. Rabbi's notation, 1947. Merchant's husk. Fled to the widow next door. He'd rewind, fingers knotted. This, older, hungrier, whispers, prelude the claim. Hannah frayed parallel, uneaten trays piled. She'd prowl nights, murmuring inverted Hebrew shemot, backward, laced Cossack oaths. Kitchen knives bore idle sigils, same as her arm. Wards, she'd dreamed say, eyes sidelong, amused black. Mirrors betrayed worst. Her approach, reflection lingering face hers, but composite, overlaid hollow-cheeked stranger, hooked nose shadowed beard stubble, grinning yellow teeth. Mine, itted mouth sinkless, she'd shatter combs, shards glittering like failed stars. Twist uncoiled Friday Eve, Shabbat flames low, parlor sanctified. Floors swept, walls sigil scribed with God's 72 names, stool-centered, salty and ring. Storm brewed outer, thunder grumbling, artillery, co-rain, sheeting silver. Rabbi talit draped, fringes whispering thrice circles. Zohar expulsion rolling, Baruch Eta, Kitchanu, BMITZVOT AV ... Lamps flared verse bright, myrrh blinding spirit sight. Hannah bound prayer shawl loose, twitching onset, voice erupted intruder's baritone. Contempt gravel, fools, seals. I am Abram, gold-gorged in ghetto gloam, took God's denied flesh futures. This shell, she craves quiet greed. Watch fracture. I clutched his loaned boxwine wood, Solomon sealed nails wood-biting as marks ignited her skin. Letters, vine-crawling throat, Anna Bekuch, corrupted. Unleash, ... hoard, ... mine. Tapping frenzied every sepsis walls, joists, pains drowning, chants, cacophony. Her arch puppet, masculine bark, laugh spit-flecking. Mirror whelp, witness invitation. Defying halt, I dragged vanity's cleage. Glass-fogged breath, my knot, warping reflection. Hannah features over strangers, gaunt, hook-nosed. Kalai's forge gleam, grin uneven, whispering meward. Your peaks cracked, Eliyahu. Cellar brush freed me, blood call. To Kinweek, slap truth, grandfather, not sealed, clean hid, among heirlooms. Clasp time frayed, my itch wedged. Rabbi's horror mirror eyes in senseis played. Doubt our prick bar, ritual crested maelstrom. Rabbi Atham splashing, archangels invoked. Michael bind, Gabriel sever chicken bone. Blade air parting, convulse foam sigils, scar red. Voice wail, silk tear, guttering as box gaped. Final seal chanted, bound, restless. Woodwill vessel, acrid smoke. Lip poured, serpent coil boxed. Snap shut, stone hammer nail, wax hot. Drip resealer. She slumped rainhammer, applause damned. Unbound, bedborn, dreamless slumber first moons. Vigil box, table warm, rabbi rasping. Done, but lies chain, Eliyahu. Dawn pale promise. Hannah woke, cheek rosed, broth sipping soft. Nightmare veil, scars, arm trace tattoo new. Taps, hushed, murmurs, mute. Tapes burned, salt anew. Weak normalcy reclaim. Chalabrades wendiners, studies rabbi watch. Box grave, Udug, stone verse marked. Doubts fester though, night house quiets. Scratches, echo not taps. Lover nails wood. Hanalav true. Mirage eyes, linger void, buried box. soil patlid, shift-felt, subtle, breathgrave, and whispers. Mine now, wind-woven, e-lee, yahu, join coins pocket ghost, pre-war gleam unnatural rabbi, wanders, dusk graves, scars reweep, muttering unbenighed, I scribe, candle salt, loose doubt fester, bound, ever, or deeper invited, soul cracks, attic empty weightless in, visit shtetl when tap here, ignore, always ignore.